Board Member Walsh? Here. Board Member Best?
Here.
Board Member Lee is absent. Board Member McGuire?
Present.
Board Member Walker is absent tonight. Board Member Reimer?
Here.
Student Member Grabman?
Here.
1, 2,
Right.
5 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. May I have are there any corrections or additions to the minutes that we got for our March 21st meeting? Any additions or corrections? If there aren't any, I'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is a resolution of appreciation for Andrew, who's been with us for since May of '76 until May of this year. The resolution reads, whereas Andrew Graberman has served the city of Lake Forest as a student member of the Park and Rec Board from May 2016 to April 2017. Whereas he has devoted much valuable time and personal attention to the work of the advisory board, and on behalf of the citizens of Lake Forest, continually met his responsibilities with purpose and dedication. And whereas the citizens of Lake Forest recognize and are deeply appreciative of the valuable time and service he contributed to the preservation and improvement of the quality of life of our community by serving on this board. Now therefore be it resolved that the Parks and Rec Board of the City of Lake Forest, Illinois, hereby expresses the profound gratitude of the citizens of Lake Forest to Andrew Graberman for the loyal and faithful public service he has given by means of his resolution, which will be spread upon the permanent records of the Park and Rec Board. Andrew, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Again, congratulations.
Andrew, is there anything you'd like to say before you leave us?
This experience was, I think it was very good. My mom she told me about this. She said I should sign up, and I was like, sure. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into, but the year that I've been part of the Parks and Rec has been very fun. I thought it was very good, very interesting experience. Very, like, it'll help me in the long run, I think, a lot. So thank you very much.
Well, we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Opportunity for the citizens to address the Park and Rec Board on non-agenda items. Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the program spotlight on the lakefront presented by Andrew.
Thank you, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's good to see you. It is a great day in Lake Forest today, isn't it?
Yeah.
So being a great day, I'm going to talk to you about the beach today. We're going to roll right in. This is my second year managing over the beach. I'm looking forward to another great year. Hopefully we'll have great weather again. And we're just going to talk about little things that we do down there, some new programs that we're rolling out, some stuff we did last year. So basic overview of the beach. I'm going to talk about the special events we're going to have down there. We'll talk about some rentable spaces, boat programs, and the operations. You see a nice little flag. That's all the lifeguards we had last year, so it's a nice little group photo. That was one of the in-services. We do weekly in-services with all the lifeguards. It's something I started last year, so we do life-saving techniques. We do drills. Last year we did some first aid where I staged another city worker to stage an accident with fake blood, and she came running out, and my lifeguards were like, "Oh, is it real? What's going on?" So it's really good. It's fun. So if you ever see a commotion on Tuesday mornings down on the beach, it's us training to save your lives. So that's what we do. So that's one of the things I'm proud of down there. So the beach is open year round. We're not there all year round, but it's open all year round. So we staff it from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. The basin's on duty starting then too. So we'll have our staff down there to help launch with the boats, and lifeguards and beach guards all will be there. Lifeguards don't go full time until June 3rd. They do weekends only from Memorial Day until June 3rd, and then they go all the way through August 20th, and then they do weekends only till Labor Day. But beach guards will be there every day, and basin staff follows the lifeguards. So we'll be set. Friendly reminders, because we're getting into the season, we will be enforcing these. No pets, no alcohol, no running, walking on the ramps, no smoking, no bicycles, skateboards, etc. Stay off the rocks. Umbrellas need to be safely secured to a chair, not freestanding, and no tying things to the trees, hammocks, chairs, ropes, chains, all that good stuff. Non-residence fees, it's free during the weeks unless it's a holiday, and holidays and weekends it's $10 for non-residents. Rentable spaces, we have the Boat Pavilion, South Pavilion, and Fire Pit. It's great places to have a little gathering. My favorite's the South Pavilion. It's a little more, I think it's a little more intimate, a little way. It's got each one has the chimneys, so you can start a fire. It's good. I like it. I like having little gatherings. That's where I had my staff appreciation last year. It was a good time. Boating center. Boating center is a way we are trying to get people to enjoy the water sports of Lake Michigan and some of the watercraft that we have. You can purchase a membership over at the rec center. It's a great way to take advantage of the beautiful weather we're having and our equipment and get out on the lake. Here's all the boating programs we offer. It's quite a bit. We expanded some new ones. We have a little bit of everything. We believe we start off at age 5 and we go all the way to adults. We do sunset sailing. If anybody wants to take a little romantic sunset cruise, that's available. We do for children, youth, all ages. So we have a little bit for everybody out there at the boating center and the sailing. Here are some new boating programs that I was talking about earlier. We have Skipper and Squirt. That's for 5 to 8 year olds. So they go out with a parent, correct, Will? Yep, they go out with a parent. So that's a new one, or a guardian. Great Summer of Sailing. That's a new one we added. Also On the Water Adventure. And then we did Half Summer Racing Program. And we're really excited about the Midsummer Midwest Clinic that we're going to do this summer. Lake Forest Sailing Team, my supervisor Will, he's been the coach. They've been doing really awesome. So they do different kind of sailing, high school sailing, teams and individual. Takes up some different high schools, Lake Forest High School, Lake Forest Academy, Woodlands Academy, Highland Park. We added them last year, so it's really cool to see all the kids together. And Will does a great job with the kids. It's great to see them go out and win some championships and get Lake Forest out there that we're best in the Midwest. Regattas. So we already hosted 2. We did a scrimmage regatta and a Mallory qualifier. The next one coming up is going to be the North Shore Cup. And then we're going to do the clinic that we talked about. That's new this year. And then hopefully the Halloween one. So these are some events we're doing down at the beach. Smelterama already went on. Judd Goldman's the next one coming on. We do a little open house for adaptive sailing. Open mic night, that's a new event that I'm gonna, one of my brainchilds. It's gonna be over at the Fire Circle. We're gonna set up a little stage. I'm gonna encourage people that play guitar, violin, read poetry, have a little safe area where they can go practice their art, get out in the park so they're not in parents' garage or attic or, wherever, or Starbucks. They can come be at the beach. We got a beautiful background. So I'm hoping that will take off. June 30th is our Christmas in July, so I revamped our movie at the beach. We themed it a little bit this year, so it's going to be Christmas in July. We're going to show the Santa Claus. I heard that Santa Claus himself may be coming in too to visit the kids to make sure they're being good little boys and girls for their mommies and daddies. So I'm pretty excited about that. The senior center is doing an active adult breakfast. The cardboard canoe regatta, I did that last year. It was a lot of fun. This is an event where there is teams of, we take a max of 12 teams. There's 5 to a team. And you build a boat completely out of duct tape and cardboard only, and then 2 people from your team sail it in a course that we make on Cell 4, and it is awesome. We had a good turnout for last year. It was the first time we did it. The police were there. We had some patrons, like a grandma and her grandkids, families. We had some other city employees. It was just, we got a little bit of everybody and we got great prizes. So it's a really fun event. So I would encourage you guys to either get a team, because we got great prizes, like I said, to give away, because we give out prizes for fastest boat, most dramatic sinking, and then fan favorite. It's a lot of fun though. So I would recommend getting a team or coming by that. Then we do the Beach Bash. That's for the college. We work with them for their incoming freshmen. That's a good one. They get to see us. They use some of our water equipment. We let them swim. We got a couple guards for them. That's a good event. A new event is the senior Frank Sinatra beach party night. So I'm working with the senior center. So we're going to have a spaghetti dinner for the active seniors in the community down there. Let them enjoy the sunset and have them at the beach at night. Daddy-daughter luau. Last year I did it for the first time. It was another good event. We're going to do it again. We transformed the North Pavilion into a tropical paradise. We had tiki torches and all sorts of decorations. We provide hula skirts and leis, so it's good. We got a DJ. We played the tropical music. And last year we lucked out because there was a brief rainstorm and we had a double rainbow. So you couldn't even ask for it better. It was awesome. And then the Wildlife Discovery Center, they do their annual camp out, and that kind of wraps up our events. But we have other stuff going on the beach too, not just our stuff. We buddy up with some of our other departments within the rec, and we have a ton of fitness programs going on down there. We have Zumba, yoga, boot camp. We have sunrise and sunset paddleboard yoga. That's a lot of fun. I guarded it, so I got to see people fall off their boards, so that's kind of fun. But it's a really cool thing to do. I would recommend it in exercise. Try out one of these. It's a great place to do it at the beach, and there's nothing better to exercise on the beach and then cool off in the lake. We got some other programs that we're doing down there too. We do Fun at the Beach. It's for 5 months, all the way to 4-year-olds. That's on Wednesday mornings. And then some future programs that I'm working on is I'm teaming up with the library to do like 3 times this summer. We're going to do basic reading classes for preschools and kindergarten. They're going to come down, bring some books, try to get the preschool and kindergartens at the beach and just show them some books, show them pictures, go over some stuff with that. So we're going to roll out that. Children's activities, that's my staff's going to do a better job of that. So when one of the lifeguards comes off of a chair and one goes back on, they usually either do AC, which is area cleanup, picking up trash, or they do kids activities where they'll grab some of the children around the lake and they'll bring out coloring pictures or sidewalk chalk and do some activities like tic-tac-toe or different things with the children to get them more active and enjoy the beach as a children too. And then I would like to get some kind of sand volleyball up and running down there too. So that's one of my goals, to see if we got an interest in that. Back to some other stuff at the beach. Down at boat storage, we have 25 boats in storage, and then we have 25 small watercraft and seasonal storage. Boat launch, you can launch your boat down there. Residents $40, non-residents $65, and we have the punch pass. It looks like that, so you don't have to buy it individually. You can get a 5 punch pass. It's a little more convenient for everybody. Do y'all have any questions?
Couple things. We did the rates for remember last year we did the rates, improved all the rates, was like a little over a year ago. We didn't do that this year. I take it's because there was no changes in rates. Is that typically how that works?
So what happened was there were no changes in rates going forward this year, with the exception, we did boat rates. We approved those in October because they moved on to city council in November.
I don't remember that on the agenda. Okay, did we? Okay. Because I know there's still been some debate. Has there been any other discussion? I don't remember this, so you just refresh about the was it with the guys that showed up? It was about the Sea-Doo or the jet ski rates being?
Yeah, I think the jet ski, I still get feedback about. I
Yeah.
have 2 jet skis on 1 trailer. Why does that count as 2? Is there something we can do about that?
Why does a jet ski cost as much as a big boat?
Right.
Was the other debate. Is that still up for debate, or is that, obviously this year is over, but?
It's a conversation that we can continue to have throughout the summer before we go to fees in October. I certainly
just
think that
remember
if
those guys
that's
that-
something you want us to look into and provide information as well as comparisons to the other facilities on the North Shore, we certainly can do that and bring it forward to you for discussion and then possibly approval in October.
Okay, perfect. I've been hit up a couple of times as well, and I remember last year we had several people in the room talking about it. The other thing is you guys do such a great job down there. It is so fantastic and so fun, especially for all of our youth. Is there any way to, it's probably going to get met with resistance, but is there an event sign we can put up down there someplace that reminds people of these things? Because there are so many things, and people say, I didn't know about it. I hear about that all the time.
Yeah, my question is, how are we publicizing all these activities? You know, you put things in the monthly newsletter, but there's so many things going on here. How are we?
So great.
How are we making this people aware of this?
So we have a really awesome marketing team at the Rec, and they put together a calendar with everything that I presented to y'all tonight. It's on an awesome big calendar. We have it posted at the Rec. I think it's around town at some of the big display cases. It is down at the beach, down by the lifeguard office in our display case, and then it's also in our brochures. So we've got it out places, and it's at the Rec on paper size, so you can take a flyer to see everything that's going out. So
That's the traditional. I'm just wondering if there's an event sign that we could put up in a little more broad. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right thing.
Well,
but
like in Lake Bluff, they have the 3 frames as you enter Lake Bluff, and it says, this is going on, this is going on, this is going on. Like, if we could put something near the park that was near the Forest Park, up on top, above the beach, that says, you know, the upcoming events with different posters that could be changed out.
And we also thought about, I think you did Smelderema, you had in the Patch or one of these other daily newspaper or daily things on the internet. It would seem to me that trying to publicize some of this stuff a couple weeks ahead of time, they're probably looking for content, and we get some free advertising. Huh?
So we utilize whatever digital media they will allow us to utilize. We send them emails weekly with our events. We also utilize our constant contact email to our database. We could possibly put these on a sandwich board on the boardwalk at the beach, but there's strict signage rules about the upper level of Forest Park right now. And
I don't even want to suggest how to do it. I'm just suggesting there's a lot of feedback
Yes.
around the traditional promotional things, which I think is really robust, but I follow it.
I
But
guess the other
I hear
thing, we're starting these concerts at the square, right? Could you take 2 minutes at those concerts? Because you might get people that aren't at the beach very often. They might open up an avenue there.
oh yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. And also,
Well, Joe can handle that.
I know a couple of our events, we've done the boost on Facebook, and that's really, initially it's looking like it's really bumping up our numbers. So we could definitely look into boosting, doing something of our flyer and boosting that on Facebook too. So that would,
I like the sandwich board idea. That's
I
kind of.
think there is a
those are people
sandwich
in-
board that sits at the entrance on the north side, and that could be
Other
a,
questions?
yeah, we have sandwich boards for different, like red flag days or lot full, but so we
Good
could
job.
utilize
You did
something.
Really wonderful work.
thank you.
you.
And then
Appreciate
I have one additional question. Is the beach ready right now? Has it been restored from the winter?
It is very close to being ready. So I did my walkthrough today. All the benches are out. The shower towers are in. The sand piles have been down. The lifeguard chairs are in. We're probably, I would reckon like 90 to 95% ready. Just a little more TLC and little cleanup, but we're real close.
Okay, great.
Real close.
So Aaron, just great presentation. I'm just so impressed with everything that we're offering in the beach. And so much of this I wasn't aware of. So I think to Steve's point about, what can we do to create greater awareness, but just an awesome schedule, awesome programs. And I like the creativity that's going into it. I mean, there's certain things that have worked in the past that we're continuing to do, but I really like some of the innovative ideas that you've come up with this past year and things you're thinking about this year. So I applaud you for your effort. Question I had, and this might be more anecdotal than anything else, but during the weekends, the parking lot can be rather crowded and people have to park off parking lot. I don't know if there are any opportunities, so I don't know if it's the north lot and the south lot where the boats are. I don't know if there are any opportunities for people who want to go to the beach to utilize the south lot or a portion of the south lot as well to handle some of the excess or some of the congested parking situations we have?
Right. So when the north lot fills up, we do go into a overflow at the south. So we have a protocol that will shut down, and then we radio over to the south end that, for example, like a white Pontiac's coming over or black Explorer. So we radio because we'll make an announcement. North lot is now full. Overflow traffic will be going to the south lot.
Okay, great. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
South Park Master Plan, Chuck?
Good evening, Chairman Kohlmeyer and members of the Park Board. I'm here seeking approval for the South Park Master Plan. Many of you have been part of this process that we started back in December. I think we've had a really good process. I'm really happy with the public meetings that we had, the staff input, Park Board input, the foundation input. So I think it was a really great process that we went through. So I want to introduce Steve Contners from Hitchcock. He's going to be going over the plan tonight, and then we'll have time for questions. Their company has done a great job. It's the first time we have used them in Lake Forest, and we're very happy with the partnership with them on this, and I'm going to give it over to him.
Thanks, Chuck. All right, good evening. All right, so we're going to take you through the plan for South Park, but even though I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, we just want to quickly visit the existing park that you've got now. So the aerial that you see up on the screen there is the park as it resides. So you've a little bit dark on the screen, but you've got your existing tennis courts down in the lower left corner, the 2 ball fields, the existing playground that's actually up for renovation this year. You got the 2 different entry drives off the top here, the sort of the loop, and then the one that's down by, this is your existing restroom and storage pavilion area at that location. And then of course off to the right is the gravel and partially paved drive that ends at a little bit of a picnic zone. We've got the woodland area that's also considered part of the park, and then we've got the regional trail that's passing along on that side, and then of course we have residential abutting the other 2 sides. And so throughout the process, we did hold public meetings. So we had some really great public feedback and some input, especially from some of the neighbors. And so we feel that we've really tried to address as many of the residents' comments as we can, along with staff giving us guidance on, you know, what's appropriate from a standpoint of resources and maintenance, and, you know, for the community itself. So this is the plan. We are going to zoom in to some key areas, so you'll be able to see some of this in more detail in a minute, but I'll give you the quick overview before we do that. So you've got basically there is going to be a loop path, and we'll see sections of it as we sort of go in here, but there is going to be a loop path proposed around the whole perimeter. One of the comments that we had during the process was to try to really maintain the open space and not interrupt that with pathways, and that's part of the reason that the path really does stay to the perimeter area is that. We are showing a new parking area off to this corner here. So instead of that loop road, there'd be 2 sort of, it's an in and an out, and we got about 20 cars there. And we're making this a single loaded area so that we can have plenty of landscape buffer right along there between the parking lot and the adjacent, or the neighborhood across the street there. And then so we've got the existing pavilion. This area here that we'll go into a little bit more detail really stays the play active area. So it's got the new playground with an expanded spray pad and nature-based play that we'll talk about in a minute. The tennis courts do shift so that we can make some room for a basketball court. So now you have tennis courts that will also be pickleball. And then there's a turnaround that we'll talk about when we get into that detail. And the 2 baseball fields primarily stay the same as they are now, just with improvements, new fencing, improvements to the dugout and the fan areas, and of course the warm-up area as well that we'll look at in a little bit more detail. And then lastly, we've got on the overview, we're still showing an improvement to the existing stone road to make a much better aligned paved entry drive and parking area with a turnaround at the end, and then the woodland area that we're obviously preserving and proposing enhancements to as well. So going into that north corner a little bit here to see in more detail. So you can see the parking lot there with the landscape buffer that's along that the residential side. And then it's got the trail comes right by it, so the trail does pick up all those parking spaces, make them all accessible. There would be a couple of specifically handicap striped accessible stalls within there. And because of the proximity of the proposed parking to this play area, there is a proposed fence that would run along that side just to make a protective barrier so the kids, if parents, that are out there with their kids, they could feel safe that they're not just going to run out into the parking lot. So the central area is basically then your renovated or your new playground area. And then we're showing that you can expand off to one side for a spray pad and then expand to the other side for kind of more like nature-based play, adventure-type play activities, which have been sort of both very big trends in the past few years. And then just to make sure that we're supporting that area with the gathering space, and this is showing a little open air shelter picnic area, also just so people can be in the shade beyond just the shades from the trees, but make sure we're providing shade for people that are out there during the summer months. And with that, you can kind of see we're still maintaining a lot of open lawn adjacent to it with a few key landscape beds around there. And then just off as this pathway kind of goes down toward the court space, there is a little pod there noted for fitness stations, outdoor exercise equipment. So shifting a little bit further down, you can see the pathway continues, and now we've got by shifting the tennis court, it allows you to have space to construct the new basketball court and still have open lawn area to do a small soccer field. And then this pathway would kind of come down here, connect to the neighborhood so that there's easy pedestrian access in and out of the park. We are showing a turnaround at the end of June Terrace. It's a large turnaround so that it can accommodate, maintenance vehicles and emergency vehicles, as well as we understand that there's a lot of landscaping companies that come through this neighborhood, and if they're trying to get through, make sure there's plenty of space for them to get around as opposed to just being at a dead end. This is not meant to be parking. It's meant to be just access and a drop off and pickup only. And then the pathway kind of continues through, connects to the courts and to the baseball field area, and then continues around the perimeter. And you can sort of see here the improved areas that we're showing, paved areas for the bleacher pads and the dugout areas so that they're all fully accessible. Shifting over to the east then, you can see that the regional trail continues alongside here, and we're showing two connections right now. So there'd be two improved connections that would be paved and a better slopes, easier slopes. So one definitely would be an accessible slope in and out, and those could even be small seating overlooks so people could just sort of come off the path without having to enter the park and have a small area where they could sit and just overlook the park or watch a ball game for a minute before they continue on down the trail. We are showing in this area that this would sort of be the improved picnic zone, so another drop-off circle at the end here, so that as people come in, they could drop off or pick up equipment or people, and you'd have a new picnic shelter here and what's proposed to be a plumbed restroom facility. So even though you already got one at the other pavilion, this is much more convenient for what would be your prime picnic area and the two ball fields. And then you can see down here too the parking. We're trying to maintain some open space here. So around the bend, there is no parking proposed. It's just the drive. Leaves a little bit more open space at that point, a little bit more visibility, better safer pedestrian connection across there to the regional trail. And if you're coming across, we're also proposing enhancements to the wetland area, enhancements to the woodland with a trail throughout that could have interpretive stations or interpretive signage. When we talk about enhancements, we just mean that we're trying to make sure that you'd propose that you'd be continuing to clear out invasives, clear out, if it's too heavy in some of those areas, maybe, come in and plant some natives from time to time just to kind of keep the quality vegetation growing in that area and in that zone. Then shifting up a little bit, we're just showing the continuation of that drive and that parking. The parking is along this side, assuming that most of these people are coming to this part of the park as opposed to Woodland. So that way they don't have to cross the access road to get to the ball field and the other improvements. And what we're proposing and is in the budget too then of the master plan would be netting across this side. So not just fencing, but tall netting to help protect those cars there from the foul ball areas. And then, this connects out to Terrace there, then the pathway continues along to the existing pavilion. Proposed that this would get an expansion so that you could have additional storage, and then an arbor or a trellis off to the side so that you could have additional covered space for picnicking and tables, along with a nicer outer plaza area so that you could really have larger functions in this area. And again, sort of staying out of the main lawn area, keep open space for but not just the ball fields, but the soccer program that's currently run out there now. And I think, yeah, went too far. So with that, I'll just open up for any questions or comments.
There was a lot of ideas. It looked like you got a lot of them captured from the Croya meeting, because that was obviously a very robust, both the pre-meeting with the Friends of the Park as well as the big meeting. So anything left out that we did that came out of those meetings? I mean, there was a lot.
Really, the primary thing was sort of scaling back on some of the internal pathways that we showed in some preliminary concepts, because people really wanted to see the maintained open lawn area. So.
And there was a lot of discussion about, they call it the wetlands. On the far side, is that really wetlands, or is it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's a wet area. I'm sure that if it was delineated, it'd probably be identified as wetland area. It's not formally delineated at this point, to our knowledge, but I'm.
But you're going to put a trail through there, or is that?
So there'd be a trail. Yeah, there'd be a trail system that would loop kind of through. Not through the wetland area. It's kind of off to the side, and then through the woodland area. But it would be adjacent to it, so there'd be opportunities for people to get close to those spaces, so you can do, nature programs or interpretation or educational signage for those types of ecosystems.
So do you have to maintain that in there?
Oh, I mean, that's what it currently is. I mean, if anything, you want to just continue some kind of maintenance program going forward, because any wetland or woodland area, if not maintained, will eventually have, invasives more likely.
But maintain it now? I didn't think we did.
We do to a certain degree. We did clear the buckthorn in about half of it a couple of years ago. We didn't go much further than that. That's part of the maintenance. We also do some invasive control, all those weeds that don't belong there. We do some spraying of those. There is a lot to maintenance. It's very different than our typical park maintenance. It's natural areas management. It's, potentially burning it, control burns, things like that. Pesticide applications are not uncommon. Buckthorn removal, all that.
Are there oaks in the
Yes,
in that
absolutely.
area?
White
So-
oaks.
Okay, so limestone's probably not a great choice for material
It
then?
won't be limestone.
Okay,
Doubt. we.
that's what it says on X.
Yeah,
so-
We could change that to crushed stone, just identifying that the material isn't at the master plan level. Yeah, we really should be a little bit less specific maybe on that.
Typically, a screen path will have, like the forest preserve, that's not limestone. It's just a crushed stone.
Are these all standalone, all these, everything in here is standalone projects, pretty much, or are there some that are dependent upon others?
Oh, as far as the way that they're identified in the budget or in the?
Right,
Yeah.
the way they're identified, yes.
Yeah, they're identified in the budget that way so that you can, so it's easier to determine what your phasing program might be. But yeah, there are definitely some things that you'd want to consider, if you're doing, if you're going to be doing, obviously, like the plumbed restroom on the one side of the park, you're going to want to think about the improvements that it takes to get the utilities there when you're doing some of the other improvements that might be in that utility run.
And we already have improvement for the playground replacement, the 230 is in there. Will we be doing the rest of this, these other items when we do the playground this year?
Yeah, as soon as we get the $4 million. No, I'm just kidding. We'd like to, and there are a lot of people.
Better get the 35 or 40 first.
A lot of people have asked me, okay, great, especially residents, they want to know when we're going to begin. We're starting to look at how we can phase this in, and there will be a lot of discussion on that. We've talked about the possibility of looking at the woods sooner than later, because a lot of that work isn't as expensive. We could do a lot of that in-house, and the trail, is potentially done fairly cheap compared to the rest of it.
But, yeah, I don't know that I got an answer to my question. There's 4 items on here underneath the playground.
Under the playground.
What? Yeah,
Under there, okay.
are you gonna do those when we do the playground?
No, we will not. Just
Okay.
the playground in its current layout is all we're doing this year.
Okay, and that's okay standalone?
It is. And, the rest of it is like the splash pool, and a nature area.
No, I mean, you're talking about snow, sidewalks and stuff, or stone, you're not talking about the splash pool here. You're
Well-
talking about paving it to connect to the parking and,
Yep. Well, we're not gonna do, unless, we find money to do some of the infrastructure work, we're not planning on doing sidewalks or anything. The curbs are in pretty good shape on the playground. If we're doing curbing, we might do some sidewalk extensions, but it's not planned right now.
okay. Other questions or comments?
Are we gonna start getting into the numbers at all, or? So because I was just kind of looking at the numbers, and I don't have many reference points, but I kind of look at a price tag of $4.1 million. And that's like, to me at least, my initial reaction, that's a lot of money. I don't know, I'm not an expert in parks, and I don't have a lot of reference points. So I don't know how much it's cost us to renovate other parks, and how does this compare relative to other projects we've worked on. But that was just kind of just my initial impressions, like, it's a lot of money. So.
Well, I think one way to look at it is it's a combination of replacement and upgrades to existing amenities, as well as added improvements to new amenities. So just like your playground project that came across this year, that playground was going to be renovated whether you had a master plan or not, and you were going to spend that money.
Right.
So like when you look at the cost estimates, when we're talking about, replacing your tennis court and the improvements for the ball fields, some of those are costs that you would probably have had over time anyways, to just keep that current amenity updated and replace those elements as they come to the end of their useful life. But then, of course, the other ones are new ones that we're looking at, like the spray pad and the nature-based play. And so those are comparable for parks of this size as far as the budget numbers that we're looking at. But so the $4 million might be a little deceiving, only from the standpoint of a lot of that goes into just what would have been standard replacement and upgrades to some of your park facilities anyways. And then a lot of it, of course, is the added components. And when you are replacing them, maybe making them a little bit nicer than just, what you would have if you replaced them sort of just in kind.
So of the 4.1 million, so and maybe this is to you, Chuck or Sally, so what's been approved and what's not been approved, or?
The 230,000 has been approved,
Okay.
and it is part of that 4.1.
Okay, all right.
Well, when we've done master plans of other parks, what are you looking at, a 5 to 10 or 5 to 15 year time frame over which you might do this stuff?
We haven't really put a timeline on it. I would hope that it would not take us 10 to 15 years to get this park completed, but it's certainly going to take us longer than 2 years. We will have to start searching for funds. We're going to have to look for grants. We'll have to prioritize, possibly, speak to the residents and find out what their priorities are for replacement or development as we go forward. But we certainly don't want this to be developed and then sit on a shelf. We want it to keep it active. And so you may see this over the course of 5 or 6 years coming together, but it's really going to be based on how we can get to funding.
I mean, that South Road has been in bad shape for years, and so, trying to do that and consistent with what the master plan is, seems to me to make all the sense in the world, huh? And
I agree. I agree.
And there's sort of the true value of having a master plan in place. So now when you go to redo your road, you're doing it in a way that you're making way for improvements that you want to add later.
So today you're asking for approval of the plan. Is part of that prioritization? Are you looking to the board for advice on that or guidance, or is that a separate discussion?
That would be a separate discussion. We're looking for an approval of the overall master plan concept.
Okay.
So, and when you say concept, along with the budget to go with it, is that right? So we say approve the plan as laid out and the costs associated with it.
Well, you're
Am I-
not really approving,
We're approving the
numbers or
master
anything.
plan, not the
master plan.
cost.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are just estimates. We're not asking for approval of any costs whatsoever.
Well, and again, if we do this over a 3-4 year period, those numbers are gonna escalate anyway, so.
And they will come to you for approval as we do each increment, and then they will be real numbers
What
as
you want
opposed
from
to
us now is approval
approximations.
of the concept,
The
the master
concepts,
plan itself.
correct.
huh?
You guys did a great job with this. This is really attractive and obviously going to be a heck of an asset to the south, or to the communities over there next to the lake. Two things that have popped out at me. One is, particularly at the meetings that we had at Croya, a lot of the residents were really concerned about parking. So does the parking count? Is it such that we've really maximized that to keep the parking out of the neighborhoods? Because that was such a huge issue for those folks.
It's kind of we were trying to strike a balance really along the way, because while there was obviously a need for parking, there was also concern of not, over parking the park as well. So right now, the lot that you see in the top left corner, that's about 20 spaces, maybe a few more than 20 spaces. That was purposely kept scaled back a little bit, so that we could have adequate landscape buffer there and for those residents next to it. And then the lot to the right, that one's a little bit over 40 spaces. And again, there's some open space there that you could expand parking beyond what's shown here if you needed. But we're trying to strike that balance of having adequate parking spaces without making it feel like we were creating a parking lot that people didn't want.
And the idea of having any parking over by the tennis and the basketball field, so that it doesn't take away from the ones over by the playground.
There was just a concern about bringing traffic on
Oh, it
June
brings
Terrace
traffic.
there if we were to have a parking lot as a destination at the end of that. Is that the area you were talking about?
Yeah, because, so the people that use that would park probably up by the playground, right?
Yeah, so that
Or in the
area is
neighborhood.
just really strictly for a drop off. So if someone's going to the courts or the baseball game and you're just dropping them off, you'd be able to drop them off there or pick them up there. That's not meant to be parking in that lower left corner.
The other thing I remember was discussed at the meetings with the public were along the, where C is, the parking area there,
Yes.
potentially a semi-permeable surface that could be closed off in the winter, since those aren't really used in the winter, and so you don't have to plow it. Is that something that was,
To
So-
close it, I mean, that could definitely be looked at when you were ready to move forward. That's kind of like sort of your comment about the screening material for the pathway. So when your guys are ready to move forward with constructing the first parking lot, looking at different pavement surfaces, including permeable options, is definitely something that can be reviewed at that time.
And one other thought is too, is the parking by the ball field on the left side down there that is a really target-rich environment. You said netting on the other side, on the first base side. On the third base side, there's no netting there.
Correct. Right now, the budget's just representing netting along the first base side.
Can the parking be on the other side of the road? I don't want to get into how you do it, because you guys are the experts, but that's a really target-rich environment. I was thinking if the parking could be on the opposite side of the road, that would help.
We had those exact discussions during the design process with staff, and in the end, we felt that
Don't want to cross the road.
for the safety of people not having to cross the entry access drive, because if a lot of people are parking on that right side and meaning to then enter the park, not the woodland area, then they'd have to cross the access drive. So we're just trying to create a safer pedestrian connection by putting it on that
There's
side.
no reason why you couldn't put the same netting here along the third base side as you're doing on the first base side, is
Right,
there?
yeah.
Just
no,
money.
it's not.
Yeah,
just-
money's money. Okay. So, back to some of the earlier discussions. It's certainly a robust budget, a grandiose plan. It's a beautiful plan. I'm anxious to see the prioritization. So can you give us a little bit of idea of how these things get prioritized in terms of, based on all these conversations that you've been having with neighbors and others and your staff?
Yeah.
About what you would prefer, how things would get prioritized?
I can take a shot at it if you want to add to it anytime. My take on it is, the things that we heard the most about, Parking was an issue. I mean, I'm gonna leave the playground out. We heard about the playground too, but we're taking care of that. So that's a very quick, easy thing that we're endeavoring on. But the tennis courts have long been a concern for the residents. I would put that personally higher on my list of needs. There are some issues with it. We've addressed some temporarily, but people are very aware that the tennis courts, it's important to them, but they want to see some improvements.
Isn't there a plan to be already teed up to do some tennis?
Not there, no.
Oh, it's
Not
not
here.
there?
We've held off
Oh, okay.
here at this park for this very reason. We
Okay.
wanted to get through a master plan.
Gotcha.
This shows the tennis courts being moved, actually, so they wouldn't be repaired, they'd be removed.
I see.
So those would be higher on the list, I think. I do think that the woodlands may not be as high on everyone's list, but they are it's an area that's important in a natural way, you know, in an ecological way. This is the headwaters of a ravine. It's cut off, but it used to be the headwaters of a ravine. So there are some important plant species, and the oaks out there are pretty significant. So that's something that we could address with a very little amount of money.
Like
So
donate to
those-
open lands?
Open Lands will work with us on it, but yeah,
Okay.
they love that spot too.
I know
they're
they
very aware
do.
of it.
That's why I said it.
I think the biggest thing that we would like to hit is some of this parking issues. And typically when we're doing parking lots, if you're doing asphalt, you might as well do the path as well. So I would lump all those together into a project. It's unlikely that we'll hit them all at the same time unless we have a big grant. So I would speculate that that parking lot C, would be in dire need of help. If anyone's been out there, you know that the parking, there's only 2 or 3 spots tops at the most, if you are generous, and people park on the lawn. We constantly have, the asphalt is eroding away because of that. That's in desperate need of help. So I would put that high on the list. Would we potentially do some a cart path? Thinking golf course, sorry. We're going to do a bike path or walking path. We may look at doing that in conjunction, again, because the efficiency that you get with the contractors that way. So those are some of the high points that I would say. The baseball, some of those amenities, they're in okay shape right now. The actual fields are fantastic. The grass and the turf is great there. But the dugouts and some of the fencing, it is in need of repair. I would guess that, it's working okay, and, I don't think it would be high on the list. That stuff doesn't sound like a lot, but you start adding up renovations to the ball fields, it goes up quickly. So those are the ones that I would put higher. I don't know, Sally, if you have others to add.
I do.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their own opinion.
Yeah.
I think also that this neighborhood is got a lot of young families in it. They utilize this park on the weekends quite a bit, and I think probably one of the amenities we will look at is that event terrace area, because they do host a lot of neighborhood gatherings on the weekends there. So that might be something that is sort of an easier thing for us to complete and give them a little bit more space for utilization in the park in a quick turnaround. So that's one of the ones that would come up to my mind as an easier one to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is hard for us as we look at it. We would love to hit all of these things. And to add to that area, the pavilion, right now there is a lot of space that our parks guys use. There's a lot of storage in there. They have a kind of a workshop there with lots of supplies. It's their outpost away from our municipal center. So there may be a better way to utilize that space that would serve the public better. So we're looking at that kind of stuff. Obviously, building renovations, could be expensive, but we could find ways to cut those costs.
One last question, and I'll leave you alone. And that is, as Paul said, it's a big number and a beautiful plan. But if you were going to look at a grant as probably not the right term, subsidy to help offset that cost. What kind of goal are you starting to think about or would like to see in terms of the grant number to kind of establish a benchmark for discussions about this?
Well, I should tell you up front too that grants, the classic grant is the OSLOD grants, and that's DNR grant, correct?
Correct, yeah.
DNR does that one. They are not being issued these days, and Steve can talk to that more if you want details. But right now, there is no money being offered there. That would be a perfect grant for this kind of a project. Getting grants for parking lots and things like that is not easy. However, keep in mind that the regional trail that he's talking about, that's the McClory bike path, that has some good implications for us. That path is probably one of the heaviest used bike and pedestrian paths anywhere around here. If you've ever been on it, it's heavily traveled. There are opportunities when you combine that. A lot of granting parties will, if you connect walking, biking with parks, there may be some potential there for something like that. Obviously, the playground we're funding ourselves, so I don't know if you have any other thoughts on where we're going with grant funding to add to that.
Yeah, as Chuck said, the OSLID grant is currently not being provided. There's still the land water conservation grant, but that's being used currently just for acquisition of park space and not development of park space. The Land Water Conservation Fund is actually the federal source that funds OSLAD, but because our state has had challenges with the budget, it's not state money. OSLAD is federal money, but it requires our state budget to be intact more than it has been for it to actually have a source to be administered through. So we do anticipate that it will come back someday, but that one is about it was a $400,000 maximum ask of 50-50. So if you were looking to get 400, you'd be putting up at least 400. So if that comes back, that might be one of your starting points that you look at as an $800,000 plus project. There are some green infrastructure grants out there from time to time. So as you're looking at the parking lot, if you do decide to look at perennial pavers, there might be some smaller grants out there for that thing. There are still some state grants, as Chuck was talking about, for trail systems. Most of those are geared in priority toward funding regional trails and not internal park trails. Mm-hmm. But sort of because it's connectivity to a regional trail, there might be something there through the DNR for their trail grant, the RTP grant.
So is that's just a fluid thing then we're going to kind of keep pushing on? Is that?
Well, we have to keep an eye on the grant situation. Right now, it doesn't look promising in the immediate future, but a year from now, things could be different. I mean, I think that's why we want to come up with some things. We have the playground. If we can do some other things, we'd love to, but we'll have, maybe next year the grant situation will be better. We may have a balanced budget next year and everything.
But including marrying with some other community groups stuff as well?
Well, one thing that comes to mind with that is partnering with Open Lands, working on the woodland to the south. That would be the kind of thing we could partner with them on. There may be some grant opportunities for that. I don't think it's going to cost that much, though, to do it. When you start buying plant material and things like that, there are grants for that I'm sure there's some things out there. It's just a matter of how far we take it. So that's one partnership. I don't know if I'm not thinking of any others off the top of my head, but certainly partnering with the neighbors we've talked the other day about even having volunteer days in the woodlands. That might be a great way to get people excited about getting going on the park. If you've been in the woods, they are high quality woodlands, but they are being choked off by a lot of bad plants, garlic mustard and stuff. That's perfect volunteer kind of thing. There's also garbage, not trash and stuff, but there's some old junk out there that could be removed.
Since this is going to be like a long process, do you think when you guys are working on the park, is it going to be like restricting the public's use of it? If you're working on any sections, like, is it going to be off limits to the public?
Only, I mean, if something is under construction, obviously that part of the park would be off limits during construction. But, I mean, that'd be the only time that we would expect that you guys would have to have a part of the park down is when you're actually doing the construction to improve a portion of it.
Because we're doing it in pieces, most likely, that reduces the likelihood that we would ever shut the whole park down. If we did all the asphalt in the park, there would be some days down, but I doubt that it'll be much, the way we're doing it.
May I have a motion to approve the South Park master plan as presented? A motion?
I will. Motion to approve.
I'm sorry?
Motion to approve.
All right, second? I'll second. Do we need a voice vote on this, or we need? What's that?
Please do a roll call vote.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Sally.
No, all right, Member Walsh?
Yes, sir, approved.
Okay, Member Best?
Yes, approve.
Member McGuire?
Yes, approve.
Member Reimer?
Yeah, I'd really love to see this with a little bit more a plan around the grant side and a little bit, so it's not looking like we're just throwing a grandiose. It seems to me as a board, to be responsible, we should be thinking about that big cost number. So I'll say yes as a plan. I'd love to see us think more about a coincidental presentation on sequencing and grants. I mean,
Okay.
prioritization and grants
All right,
as part of the presentation of a master plan. I don't know how, that's just my thought.
so are you saying yes, or,
I'm sorry?
I'll say yes, but I really am encouraging that this have a phased-in kind of prioritization step to it and a grant plan that goes.
I would
along
agree,
with it.
so.
so,
Yes.
all right, so member, so Chairman, you have 5 yeas, the motion passes.
Thank you.
And we can definitely continue to work with Chuck and Sally to provide more information about phasing and grant opportunities.
It's going to be an ongoing project, and
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
are going to be seeing this over the course of your term here on the board.
Yeah. I just, to throw this out there without that seems a little bit, puts us at a little bit in a defensive mode, I think, that I would like to be prepared.
Yep, and then just to build off Steve's point and other points, yeah, to me, that's a big priority is, I mean, it's a big project, and so just understanding what the priorities are and really honing in on how we're going to finance this and really kind of looking at all the different nooks and crannies we can to help finance this. The city has a lot of financial obligations, so, you know, I just want to make certain we're taking a very responsible approach financially towards how we approach this project and be very as creative as possible. And I want to be here to support you too as well. I'm just not saying you guys figure it out. So we need to do that collectively. So let's kind of keep our eye on the ball.
Nice plan, really.
Yeah,
really
beautiful plan.
Beautiful
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Chuck, South Beach?
Nice, Chuck.
All right, we'll jump into this. Unfortunately, this isn't as positive of a presentation. There's the South Beach Access Road. So last year about this time is when we first started to observe some of this slipping, and you can see it there. There's the road, and it's dropping off there. That was in May of 2016, and at that time, I'll just go to this slide, but at that time, we started the process of looking at what to do with the road. At the time, we were told that it would be a good idea to cover it. We put plywood and tarps and all kinds of things on it. And I'm sure all of you saw that. But this year, in May, just a few weeks ago, we noticed additional slides. And as a matter of fact, we noticed it because one of those big structures that we put up that had plywood and tarps ended up on the road one night. And they were very well secured to the slope, and they were actually bolted to the curb. And it wasn't just the wind that did it. What happened was they were attached on both sides of the part that had slipped, and it moved and it ripped it right off of the road, and then the wind picked it up and threw it on the road. So our guys went out and cleaned it up, and we realized then that things were continuing to get worse. We had already started a relationship with AECOM. They're the engineering firm that's working with us on this. Back in this a few months ago, we went to City Council and got approval for all the design work. That was all part of our CIP process. But we had AECOM working on the design anyway, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. But so we called them and let them know earlier this year that, hey, we have more problems. At that point, they recommended that we remove the trees that were directly adjacent to there. And we looked at it. It was very clear that these were somewhat large trees right on the edge of that area that had failed. And that additional weight caused concern that this whole thing was going to fall off. There was never really a concern that this was going to end up in the parking lot or anything. There was a concern that it was going to just slough off, is what they refer to it, and a big landmass would just fall down, including the trees. So at that point, we had the forestry crew go out there, and they removed 28 trees in that area. I will tell you, though, that we knew that those trees would come down when the project started later this year. So it was just, we decided to do it a whole lot quicker to get that weight off. At that time, AECOM also recommended that we retarp it so that we could keep the water out. So we've been monitoring things. We've been trying to watch it. And you know, as part of that contract we have with AECOM, they did divide things up in 3 areas. There's the South Beach Access Road. That's the bulk of the work that we'll be doing in the fall. But that's where this collapse happened. But they're also monitoring from the whole edge of Forest Park. So when you get into the trail system, if you look at the bluff all the way up from the south parking lot up to the North Beach Access Road, they're monitoring that. They were concerned that there were some areas that looked like they were slipping, but they didn't have immediate concerns at the time. And then on the North Beach Access Road, they had some additional comments because there are problems there as well, and I'll show you some pictures of that. We're not going to go into the details of what's going on with the engineering. We're just trying to update you on where we're at with this. But in a nutshell, the road is built on fill. That fill material has been there for 30 plus years. So it had a useful life, but anyone that knows ravines and bluffs and things like that, they're very dynamic, and you know they're seeking their own level now. So that fill area is failing. So in the end, the plan is fairly detailed that they're working on, and it does involve lowering the road it's lowering the road on average. I think it's about 5 or 6 feet lowered. Not the whole thing, obviously, but in certain areas it's lowered. What that lowering does is it allows you to get acceptable slopes for the rest of the ravine. So, I'm sorry, I said ravine, the bluff. Ravine's on the other side of the road. So that's kind of in a nutshell. Believe me, there's a whole lot more to it than that. There's a lagging wall. There's some other features that will go into this. But without going into all that, I'm going to move on to the next one here. So this is just a good example of last year at this time. That's what we encountered. We covered it up. That's all we did. You can see the trees there. This year it expanded greatly. It opened up and failed. It probably doubled in size. We did when we went out there and we saw it. We realized that immediately when we pulled the tarps, it was significantly larger. So this is the second effort. This just happened a few weeks ago. We put tarps back on it. And then there's some sandbags on here. Further down, there was again a need to build it up with plywood and stuff like that, so it's much heavier because the gap was huge. We needed to cover that up. The idea is to keep rainwater out of there so that it's not saturating that again and causing it to slip. So the schedule going forward, the design that I was talking about with AECom is due to us on June 23rd. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just because when Econ came out the first time to look at this, and I know that there was, that gap wasn't as big, but they made a preliminary judgment that everything was safe. And when I was down there yesterday,
road?
yeah.
Yeah.
When I was down there yesterday, they've already made it one way in that one section. So have they reconfirmed that it's at least?
That's been one way for a long time.
Yeah,
Steve.
they did one way, when we did,
Yeah, no, the gap thing, yeah.
It's been one way for 6 or 8
Yeah.
months.
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, and we are looking at expanding that actually. I mean, we're concerned where it's breaking away right next to the road. The curb is, right after the curb, it's dropped off. So we're looking at expanding that possibly. Obviously, I should have said this in the beginning, but public safety is always going to be our number one concern.
right.
So we're watching that carefully, and there's a lot of people concerned with that. So we're keeping the traffic off of that side of the road wherever it's compromised. So we're not making it one way. Obviously, we don't want to cause a traffic issue, and if we expand it too far, you won't be able to see the person coming down. Right now, you have a clear line of sight. We're looking at expanding it maybe a few more feet, if we can.
I will say that we have already teed up staff to be able to actually control that traffic this summer. So there'll be staff at each of the stop signs radioing to each other so that we can control who's on that portion of the road safely.
Yeah, this is, I don't want to interrupt, this is really a strange project. It happens to be on a park, in a park, but it's really more of a public works situation, and they're really managing the technical aspects of this.
Absolutely.
And in fact, there's a special advisory group made up of knowledgeable people, right, that are working with staff on this issue. And in fact, that group came up with an alternate plan that I guess they're going forward with, right, to get rid of the fill and get down to base soil.
Yep. Yeah, that committee was formed a few months ago, and it was experts in the field. We had a great team of people that looked at it. The first time we looked at it, there were some ideas floated. One of the things that came out of that committee was this idea of lowering the road. And in the end, as the engineers looked at it, they did the analysis, they thought that would be a good approach. It was a great meeting of minds. There were some people, we had construction people, we had natural areas people, we had a little bit of everything. So it worked very well. And they made some recommendations. That committee is not meeting anymore. They made the recommendation and passed it on. But you are right that this is a public works project. We work closely with them, obviously, so we're helping them quite a bit with some of the things that need to be done. I won't go through all these details, but there's all kinds of things associated with the bid. That whole process that we go through with reviews and all that kind of stuff. I'll cut to near the end there where it says that City Council will have to approve this in July, and then there's the whole bid. You have to get all the contracts in order. Construction, we would like to start right after Labor Day. That is in part based on the idea that we want to preserve the boating access as long as possible. And at that point, it starts to drop off some. Not completely, but I know our rec staff is looking at that pretty seriously, how we're going to work with those boaters. There's different issues. I don't have all the details on that, but I'm sure others can fill in the gaps on that. So construction would begin right after Labor Day. We do want it to be completed we have November 17th. That's based on the idea that the asphalt companies shut down typically on the Thanksgiving holiday. So we worked our way back. The construction people that we've talked to have confirmed that they think this is doable in that time frame. So that's kind of the schedule we set up. I just have a couple more slides, but the other thing that just happened a week ago, we observed, if you think about going north, if you're in the south parking lot and you walk on the path north, not very far, 100 yards or so, there is a large sugar maple that was right on the edge of the bluff, overlooking the walkway, the large walkway below it. I'll show you that on here. It's hard to see on here. Here's the maple. Here's one of the new benches in Forest Park. Very nice bench. There was a crack discovered right here, and it actually goes about 4 feet from the bench. That crack is much smaller than the one I showed you on the roadside, but it's still of concern to us. So here's the tree. It shows it a little better. It is a fairly large tree, and this is directly below it. So there's all kinds of levels of walkway there that concerned us. When we were told about it, I went over there with our parks and forestry guys. We looked at it and decided it had to be removed that day. So we took the tree down immediately. We shut down the boardwalk, and we shut down that section of the park to get our guys in there, and they did a great job getting it out by, I think, 5 o'clock that evening. Unfortunate that we had to lose the tree. The tree was it was so close to the edge, the one side of the root system was exposed. We always knew that this tree would have to come out someday, but when we saw the cracks along the side, we decided that was the day. Sorry.
Have the experts looked at this, that you think the tree was causing the problem here?
Well, it wasn't helping. I mean, when you looked at it, you could see basically the tree was here, and you could see the outline. I mean, it was almost like looking at the whole root system of the tree. Now, we don't take the roots out because that still has value. The tree isn't really causing the problem. The problem is still that it's unstable slope. It doesn't, when you look at it, it looks like it's going out too far and the boardwalk is below it. Taking the tree out did not in any way guarantee that it's not going to slough off. It could, but we feel that it reduced the risk. But also, if it comes down and it falls on its own, I can't even begin to say how hard it would be to fix that boardwalk. I mean, we would be here asking you a big question: do you want the boardwalk back? Because it would, in this day and age, with ADA requirements, everything else, that boardwalk would be a major expense, and it would have wiped out a very large portion of it. So that's why we hit it fast. So that's, it wasn't helping the bluff at all, and we just had to get it out of there.
Do trees provide stability to bluffs, though? It
They
does,
do.
right?
They do. The root system does.
Right. And so is there a thought to put replacements in? I just need to know what the...
Well,
like how you handle
we do
that.
have a natural areas management plan that was developed back when the Forest Park board was, they're still in existence, but when we were doing the park, Cliff Miller put that together. We still have that. That's a guideline for this, and it does recommend trees. It recommends some coming out because things like black locust are less desirable, buckthorn obviously, things like that. It recommends taking those out, but it recommends putting other trees in. And you can probably guess that a lot of those are native trees, things like oaks and hickories and maples and things, native maples that will hold the bluff. So this would have been a tree that typically we would have left, but it just unfortunately was in the wrong spot.
Thanks for catching it.
Yeah. So real quick, the North Beach access road, this is a problem that's somewhat isolated. There is a ravine that runs along that road. It'd be on the north side. If you ever look down in it, you'll see it. It's a very small ravine. This is looking from the roadside. We did observe this spring, actually, that a number of things happened in the last few months. One, the pipe connection that drains under the road was pulled apart, so that's something we can fix. But more importantly, gabion baskets. Gabion baskets are the large, it looks like chain link fence that's wrapped around stone, and they plop them in there. They're pretty successful in a lot of places. These actually moved, which doesn't happen very often. That means the soil must have slipped and they moved down the ways a little bit. Not like they went into the lake, but they just moved, which is kind of defeats their purpose. We also witnessed some major slides. This is actually looking at the neighbor's house, and there's a nice retaining wall right here. I don't know if you can see it, but this is just a chunk of clay that broke off. This whole thing is highly eroded. So there's some big problems over there. Now, this part of the project is not being addressed this year. We're not going to tackle that in the fall. We have our hands full with the South Beach Access Road. So the things that will be going on, the South Beach Access Road will be repaired this fall. We'll continue to monitor in the park itself. There actually, I think there was a note on here. This area, this is where the tree was. The engineers are putting inclinometers to measure change and things. So they're going to be doing that. They were going to put in devices anyway to detect how much things are slipping. They're going to do it now and do it there so that they can keep an eye on that because of the concern that showed. So that's going on. The North Beach Access Road, that work would be designed sometime in 2017. And then I believe, yeah, it says 2017 on there, design, construction next year in calendar year 18. So it looks like a much smaller ravine in a smaller area. However, there's likely going to be a greater need for permitting. And permitting, we didn't want necessarily to have permitting hold up the South Beach Access Road. There's no real major permitting issues there. When you're messing with a ravine, you're going to bring Army Corps and stormwater management and groups like that in.
So is the North Road potentially compromised?
We
Could
don't-
be in the same way the South?
We don't think so right now. We're not seeing anything that close to the road. We're certainly watching though. There's nothing like what we're seeing on the south end. Most of the neighbors are probably concerned because it's a vertical wall next to their property, and they're going to continue to. There's no vegetation in some of those areas.
In the North Road, we have there's concrete retention.
As you
along
go down to the bottom, yes.
Right.
Yeah, at the very bottom.
Is that similar application going to happen on the South Road then?
No, I don't think anything like that, actually, no. There are lagging walls, and that's being talked about in some areas. I don't want to say too much about that because we haven't seen the design yet. There are different ways that you can make those look better.
Yeah.
I would hope they're not going to be concrete walls or anything like that. We're very concerned about the aesthetics, obviously, and we want to make sure that we're public safety number one, but the aesthetics, we want to make that look as nice as it does now.
The movements you're seeing are new this year, right? We haven't seen these kind of problems in the north and other places up till now?
That's correct. The movements that we've seen have all been in, between May of 16 and now. Before that, years ago, there was a slide that the whole path on the south end, they lost a big portion of I think it was a road at the time, and they lost it all. So there's nothing uncommon about bluffs sloughing off. It happens everywhere, but in some ways we've been fortunate, but if you look at it, you would think it has a lot to do with the heavy rains that we got in the spring, the last 2 years in a row. Last year we had extensive rain, and then we started seeing this. This year we had some extensive big rains, and then we started seeing it again.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? You're not asking, this is just an update on what
Informational
the
only,
status
yep.
update, right?
Yep.
And I assume that Public Works is involved in the items in the north also?
Oh, that is their project as well. Mm-hmm. We assist in whatever way our staff can, especially forestry and the natural areas management areas. We do that as well.
Sally?
Okay, let's move on to some happier news. So I just want to bring you up to date on some of the things that are coming up with Parks and Recreation over the next couple of months, the summer months. I want to remind you all that the Fred Jackson Annual But Not Yet Memorial Golf Outing is Friday, June 2nd. I believe we are still looking for foursomes. There are still openings. This particular fundraiser is through the Friends of Parks and Recreation, and they utilize these monies to help with improvements at the golf course, as well as part of the subsidies for scholarships. I would like to remind you that our Concerts in the Square series will begin on June 14th. It's every Thursday evening from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. in Market Square on the Greensward. I want to point out that the car show is July 20th this year, and that this particular event is sponsored by Lake Forest Bank and Trust Company. As Aaron mentioned earlier, open mic night at the beach. I'm excited for this new activity to begin. It looks like June 20th, July 18th, and August 15th from 7 to 8 at the Fire Circle at the beach. Come out and practice your talent and enjoy the setting. And as Aaron indicated, we are going to Christmas in July with Movie at the Beach. We're going to start our Christmas countdown, yay, with the Santa Claus. And yes, we hear that Santa himself may stop by since he would like to visit Lake Forest Beach in the summer. And the final flyer in my grouping tonight is the 4th of July Festival and Fireworks Celebration, again presented by Lake Forest Festival, Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Foundation. This is their biggest fundraiser that they utilize those funds to support many of our programs, many of our facilities, and many scholarships for youth that need it throughout the year. So please plan to spend your 4th of July with us at Deer Path Park. Gates open at 6. Before we move on to the next set of comments, I just wanted to remind the board that they were sent an email invitation to attend the Lake Forest Institute in July. It's an excellent educational system about municipal government led by city staff. So if you can partake, I encourage you to do that. I also would like to mention that we are still taking camp registration for the summer, and I think that is it for me for my director's comments tonight.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Any comments by board members? If not, from now on, we'll meet at Municipal Services, right, Sally?
Correct. Beginning in June, on June 20th, we will begin meeting in the Municipal Services building in the training room on the lower level. Our meetings will continue to be at 6:30, and we will continue to meet every month.
Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Yeah, I think this master.